Okay, welcome back everybody. Moving right along with the team preview videos. Today we're talking about the Miami Dolphins. Let's begin. So, Miami Dolphins. This is the team that everybody picked as the front runner for the Tank for Tua sweepstakes last year. And there was actually a point in the season where folks were wondering, hey, they're going to win too many games. They can't be doing this if they want to draft a quarterback in the first round. So for the 2019 recap, finished 5-11 overall. Offense was ranked 27th in the league. They were 12th in passing, dead last in rushing. Defense 30th overall in the league. They were 26th against the pass, 27th against the run. Brian Flores enters his second season with the Miami Dolphins. A career record with a team of 5-11. He only had 1 year. I think that's easy to ascertain. Snapshot of the last 4 years. 2018 they went 7-9. 2017 they went 6-10. 2016 they went 10-6, made the playoffs, and in 2015 they went 6-10. So they're about 8 wins on average for the season, with last year being the rebuild season. They shipped off a lot of their key players. Laramie Tunsil, Kenyon Drake, Kenny Stills is no longer with the team. Ryan Tannehill is gone. They've all gone other places to flourish. Jarvis Landry, add him to the list. So what is left is a foundation that this franchise is now going to have to prove that they can build upon. Scout players, draft players, develop talent to be able to begin their ascent in this division. And they begin this year in 2020 with an interesting roster and a schedule that's pretty difficult. I mean, we have to consider the division that they play in, the fact that they got matched up with the AFC West this year, which is good, and that this team was just very, very poor last year. And I got to give a lot of credit to Brian Flores for managing to turn this team around in the second half and actually win 5 games. That's pretty impressive considering what he was given. It's difficult when you ship away, you trade away a franchise left tackle, a pretty solid running back in Kenyon Drake, and then you are forced to take on Josh Rosen for some reason, who they can't quite figure out what to do with either. Ryan Fitzpatrick ends up having a pretty decent season with, I think he completed more than 60% of his passes. And so the Dolphins still have a long way to go. This is by no means going to be a year where they right the ship. And just looking at the schedule, I'm having a pretty difficult time coming up with 6 wins because last year they had 5. I read somewhere in a column that 8 wins would be an improvement. I don't know if I see 8 wins, and I'm struggling to find 6. So they opened the season on the road against the Patriots. The Bills come to town. Week 3 matchup at Jacksonville. Then they come back home to face the Seahawks. On the road against the 49ers and the Broncos. Home games against the Chargers and Rams. Pretty tough way to open the first half of the season. I think by week 5 that this team could potentially be 1-4. Because you look at the Patriots, that's probably a loss. The Bills, they probably lose that one. The Jaguars, they could probably win that game. Seahawks and 49ers are no pushovers. I think they'll struggle against them mightily. I could see 1-5 heading into that week 6 road game against the Broncos. Mile High is a pretty tough place to play. Home games against the Chargers and the Rams, that helps. Those two teams are kind of on the upswing, but they're still trying to figure out their own identities. The second half of the season features a road game against the Cardinals. They play back-to-back games against the Jets with a home-and-home, with the bye week thrown right in the middle of that, week 11. And then week 13, Bengals, Chiefs, Patriots rounds up a 3-game homestand, which is pretty nice for them. And then they close the season out on the road at Las Vegas and at Buffalo. So for the second half of the season, I'm really focused on kind of like how I was with the Patriots, having 3 road games right towards the end. They've got 3 nice home games. Of course, the Bengals is probably the nicest matchup, but then you get the Chiefs and the Patriots. And I doubt either of those two teams are going to be taking their foot off the gas at any point in the season unless they have things locked up with a 14-0 record and there's no way they could lose the number 1 overall seed in the playoffs. So with it being unlikely that both teams are able to accomplish that because there is only one number 1 seed, one of them is going to give them a competitive game towards the end of the season. So it's a tedious schedule, and part of the reason is that this roster really needs to improve. Now, they've done a few things to help that. They had a lot of draft picks this year, and it was a very nice draft. I thought it was one of the better drafts from the league this year. The Dolphins haul is very nice. You get Austin Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa, Noah Igbinoghene. Later on, you get some good picks like Curtis Weaver. There was just a lot of great lot of great potential in this draft class. One we could be talking about for a long time. So let's go over what the potential starting depth chart is. First, starting on the offensive line, you have Austin Jackson taking over at left tackle for Laramie Tunsil. Flowers and Karras come from free agency. Dieter was a draft pick, and Davis rounds out the offensive line. Your tight end is Mike Gesicki. Pretty decent, productive tight end, especially when Ryan Fitzpatrick is in the mix. Caught 51 balls for, I think it was 570 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was your second leading receiver last year, behind Devontae Parker. And speaking of wide receivers, you have Devontae Parker, Albert Wilson, and Preston Williams. Preston Williams is a nice 6'5" target who has kind of surprised people lately, or last season. I went with Ryan Fitzpatrick to be the starter this year because it's been one of those off seasons where, I understand everybody's experiencing the same off season this year with the whole COVID-19 thing, but Ryan Fitzpatrick being the seasoned veteran that he is, and the things that he was able to do with his team at the end of last season, I don't really see any reason to rush Tua Tagovailoa into the starting spot at this point. Let him sit for as long as possible. And then for the running back position, I went with Jordan Howard as a starter. I think that he's probably the best suited to be able to, turn this running game into something, and not 32nd in the league, which is dead last. Matt Breida is also on the roster, acquired through a draft day trade, and they still have Kalen Ballage. But I went with Jordan Howard. I think he could resurrect himself after a disappointing injury-plagued season in Philadelphia. Moving on to the defense, Shaq Lawson comes in free agency, which is huge because this team finished dead last in sacks last year. They only had 23. Lawson had 6.5. That would have been enough to have been the team leader last year had he been playing for the Dolphins. Godchow, I don't know how to pronounce his name. And Christian Wilkins is for the defensive line. Kyle Van Noy, Roberts, McMillan, and Beal are your linebackers. And then for the secondary, you have Jones, McCain, Rowe, and Xavier Howard. And of course, I've already mentioned that they did draft Noah Benogany, so they have a very deep secondary. One is in the corner position is probably their greatest strength on defense. So the three big keys to the season. Number one, Tua Tagovailoa. I've already mentioned that I don't think that there's any need to rush him right away. If they decide to do that, then the season is probably lost. They'll probably just get him some work in towards the end of the season once they realize that they're eliminated from the playoffs. I don't think they have the depth that's going to be required to get through this season. And it's a very weird season. If it's shortened in any way, I think they have a greater chance mathematically to get a playoff berth. But if we play all 16 games and everything is as normal as can be, I don't anticipate more than 6, maybe 7 wins, depending on how a few things go. Second option is the offensive line. The running game last year was non-existent. They have a lot of new moving parts, especially on that left side from the center left. Austin Jackson was a debatable draft pick for a lot of people, being, I think he was the 18th overall selection, and it felt like at the time that they picked him, they were like, okay, all the big offensive tackle names are off the board. We better just get somebody. So let's not beat around the bush. Let's just get it done. No trade backs, no weirdness. Let's just do it. And there were still a lot of different options available at the time. So Austin Jackson as a left tackle is an interesting concept, and this could obviously change. It's just a projected depth chart, but we shall see. And the third overall bullet point I put way down here, you probably can't see it, but Josh Boyer is your new defensive coordinator, having been promoted from defensive assistant. He spent I think 13, maybe 12 years with the New England Patriots in similar position, but the defense last year was bad, as you could tell. 30th in the league, 26th against the pass, 27th against the run. Not too good against very much of anything. And with this kind of a schedule, they're going to need to be on the up and up. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves playing from behind a lot. And I think if they want to establish a running game, they're going to need to at least keep games close. So that is your outlook for the 2020 Miami Dolphins. I hope you enjoyed this preview. Let me know in the comments what you think about this team going forward this year and how soon Tua could play. See you in the next one.